Hello and welcome to episode 29 of the Forward Progress Football Podcast. I'm your host, Zach Barty, and today we're going to be continuing with the NFC North with our second team, the Detroit Lions. Let's get on into it. Alright, so in case you're new around here, hello. What we're going to be doing is going through each team position by position and just giving a general breakdown of the roster, as well as talking about their over-under, an optimistic and a pessimistic overview of the entire season, and what I believe is each team's biggest strength and weakness. At the end of this whole ordeal, I'm going to be doing a full season prediction as well as an awards prediction and playoff prediction. If you want to stick around and see all that, go hit the subscribe button and hit the like button. Start getting this out to more NFL fans like you. And yeah, let's kick things off with the Detroit Lions. Starting things off, as always, with the quarterbacks. They have Jared Goff, Tim Boyle, and David Blau. So Goff is one of the league's most underrated quarterbacks. The former number one overall pick was unceremoniously shipped out of LA for Matthew Stafford, only to watch his old team win a Super Bowl without him. While he may never be a quarterback who you can win because, he has proven that you can win with him, making it to the Super Bowl with the Rams in 2019. People act like the Lions are just trotting out a trash can or something, but they forget that his number one receiver was a fourth-round rookie slot. Last year with Detroit, he was much more conservative than in years past, but he did have his highest completion percentage and his lowest amount of interceptions since his sophomore season. Now, with a new offensive coordinator and two new receiving threats, Goff is in a prime position to shock a lot of people this year by simply being a top 20 quarterback, which is entirely possible. However, I don't think that he is the quarterback of the future, so I'm really curious on how they find that franchise leader next season. Tim Boyle, he makes no sense to me. In college, he threw for 1,200 yards, 1 touchdown, and 13 interceptions to go along with negative 122 rushing yards and 0 touchdowns. You got to remember, in college, they count sacks as rushing yards. However, he is tall, athletic, and has a strong arm, so that got him a practice squad job in Green Bay in 2018. After backing up Aaron Rodgers for a few years, he took the backup job here in Detroit and saw a few games as a starter after Goff went down. He definitely looked better in his last game in the first, but honestly, I have no faith in him winning games for this team if Goff goes down. Blau went undrafted in 2019 and made a few starts as a rookie where he definitely didn't look good, but he looked better than one would expect. He hasn't played much in the past 2 seasons, but he definitely has a shot at earning that number 2 job. So for running backs, they have DeAndre Swift, Jamal Williams, Craig Reynolds, Godwin Igwebuike, Jamar Jefferson, and Greg Bell, with Jason Kabinda being the fullback. So Swift was taken at the top of the second round in 2020. So far, he hasn't been able to live up to that billing, but he has shown some flashes. In college, he showed Alvin Kamara type potential as an elite runner and pass catcher, but so far has only been a good runner and disappointing as a receiving threat. Now, though, the offense around him looks to be much better, which could help take some of the pressure off of him. If he ever wants to hit his potential, this seems like a good year to do so. Williams is a really good complementary back. He's kind of like a jack-of-all-trades, master-of-one type back, with that mastery coming in pass blocking. He's a solid runner who fights for tough yardage and is viable as a receiving back, plus he has some of the best interviews of all time and seems to be a great locker room presence. Reynolds went undrafted in 2019 and saw his first starts last year with Swift down with injuries. He had a great 2-game stretch where he had 195 yards on the ground to go with 21 more in the air. He isn't the greatest of athletes, but showed some solid ability to break tackles and create some yardage after contact. Igwebuike went undrafted in 2018 as a safety and has bounced around the league a bit, even signing with the XFL. With Detroit, he converted to running back and had a couple of exciting snaps, including a 42-yard touchdown run. He's got to fight to make the roster still, but he's a great athlete and a fun story to watch unfold. Jefferson was drafted in the 7th round last year and had a handful of carries, resulting in 74 yards and 2 touchdowns. I wouldn't be surprised for him to stick around as at least a practice squad guy. Greg Bell went undrafted this year out of SDSU, so I'm personally hoping that he makes the roster, but he'll have to beat out a lot of talent ahead of him. And then Kabinda had a really good year as an undrafted free agent linebacker for the Raiders in 2018, but then was surprisingly cut. The Lions picked him up after that, and even more surprisingly, they converted him to a fullback. He's a really solid athlete and a willing blocker, and now entering year 4 as a fullback, let's see if he can take that next step as a lead blocker. So for wide receivers, they have DJ Chark Jr., Jameson Williams, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Quintez Cephus, Josh Reynolds, Khalif Raymond, Trinity Benson, Tom Kennedy, Corey Sutton, Josh Johnson, and Khalil Pimpleton. Chark has had an up-and-down career so far with Jags. At first, the 2018 second-round pick looked like a bust. Then he exploded in 2019 and looked like a steal. In year 3, the entire team fell apart around him, and so he obviously looked worse as they tanked for Trevor. Last year, Chark got injured in week 4 after a slow start to the season. Now, Chark will be able to be the number 1 receiver with the best quarterback he's had so far in his career, not counting the first couple games with Trevor Lawrence. That's kind of toss-up right now. His elite speed and good route running should help him have a career year and hopefully get him paid after taking a 1-year prove-it deal. Jameson Williams is more than just a speed threat. The number 12 overall pick showed some pretty good route running and understanding how to shift gears to create separation instead of just hitting his top speed right away. He's also a very aggressive run blocker despite his size. At the NFL level, he might not win these blocks often, but he definitely showed the effort, and I think that's what the Lions like, that kneecap-biting mentality. I believe Williams will be this team's number 1 by the end of the year, even if they extend Chark. He's coming off a torn ACL from the national championship game, so he probably won't be ready by week 1, but long term, I think he's going to be a great pick, maybe even the best receiver from this class. St. Brown came onto the scene late last year in a big way, looking like a steal. The rookie slot receiver selected in the 4th round last year did not have a game under 73 yards in the last 6 weeks, and he put a touchdown up in every game but one during that span. I love the way that Detroit is filling out this receiving room, as you now have St. Brown, who can work the field underneath, with TJ Hawkinson, the tight end, and Chark and Williams have that blazing speed to create extra space underneath or take the top off of it in case the defense gets caught lacking. Cephus was taken in the 5th round in 2020 and was the starter last year before he broke his collarbone. He was off to an alright start with 200 yards and 2 touchdowns through 4.5 games, but his role is probably best suited for a number 4 type. He isn't the greatest athlete by NFL standards, but he plays bigger and more physical than his 6'1", 207 frame, and definitely has the skill set to develop into a good red zone threat. Reynolds was the Rams' number 4 receiver throughout his rookie contract before splitting time with the Titans and the Lions last year. He already has that good rapport with Goff, and he's good enough to fill in case of injuries. You could definitely do worse than Reynolds for a number 5. Raymond has bounced around the league as a backup, but earned the starting gig last year in Detroit's thin room. He didn't do much most games, but he did have a pair of 100-yard games. Benson went undrafted in 2019 and saw his first action last year with the Rams, finishing with about 100 yards. Kennedy went undrafted in 2019, but hasn't really played at all yet, and Sutton, Johnson, and Pimpleton are UDFAs from this class. So for tight ends, they have TJ Hawkinson, Brock Wright, James Mitchell, Shane Zylstra, Garrett Griffin, Devin Funches, Nolan Given, and Derek Dessey Jr. Hawkinson has been a good tight end since being drafted 8th overall in 2019. He was averaging his most yards per game last year before going out with injuries in week 13. He's been a pretty reliable target with only 1 drop last season and a solid blocker, but he has yet to be dominant like how you'd want a top 10 draft pick to be. He is a top 10 tight end in the league right now, but he's clearly in a class behind those top guys. So now entering year 4 and having a lot more threats around him that the defense will need to worry about, is this the year where we see why he was taken so highly? Wright was a UDFA last year who saw a good amount of snaps, mostly as a blocking tight end. The fact that he saw so many snaps as a UDFA is pretty promising, and if he can keep developing, that's a pretty important role for an offense. Mitchell is a 5th round rookie out of Virginia Tech, and Zylstra went undrafted last year and played a bit, but not really too much. Griffin has been a blocking tight end for New Orleans since 2017 and now rejoins Dan Campbell, who was the Saints tight end coach, coming over to Detroit now. Funches was taken in the 2nd round in 2015 by the Panthers to play receiver. He was alright there, but after leaving for the Colts, he only saw a handful of snaps in 2019 and hasn't played since. Now the bigger-bodied, slow receiver is trying to transition to tight end, so that'll be an interesting to see what Dan Campbell can do with this project. Given and Desi Jr. are UDFAs from this class. So along their offensive line, they have Taylor Decker, Jonah Jackson, Frank Ragnow, Halapauli Vaitai, and Penei Sewell as the starters, with Dan Skipper, Matt Nelson, and Obina Eze as backup tackles, Logan Stenberg, Zion Obeid, Tommy Kramer, and Kevin Jarvis as backup guards, and Evan Brown and Ryan McCollum as backup centers. So Decker has been a great left tackle since being taken in the first round in 2016. I was really surprised to see that he's never made a Pro Bowl, but he plays at that level every year and will only be turning 28 this season. He's one of the league's best pass protectors and is a good run blocker to boot. Skipper went undrafted in 2017 and has bounced around a bit, not seeing significant snaps anywhere. Jackson was taken in the third round in 2020 and started right away. He's still got some work to do in pass pro, giving up 35 pressures each year so far, but now entering year 3, that's when a lot of offensive linemen really take that next step, so we'll see if he can follow that pattern. Stenberg was drafted in the 4th round in 2020, but has only seen 4 snaps so far, all as a 6th lineman. And then Obeid is a UDFA from this class. Ragnow has gotten better each year since being taken in the 1st round in 2018. He developed into a top 3 center in the league and has gotten a huge payday already. He was off to a hot start last year before getting injured, but he'll be back this season and will be a rock in the middle of this line. Brown went undrafted in 2018 and started for the Lions after Ragnow's injury. He played well for them, not being anything dominant, but definitely not a liability, and he still allowed the offense to function. McCollum went undrafted last year and started a game and played most of another, not really having the greatest of rookie seasons. The Lions gave Hal Vaitai a big contract after looking good in some spot starts at right tackle for the Eagles. He didn't live up to those expectations at tackle, so they kicked him inside where he has looked better. He may not ever live up to that 5-year, $50 million contract, but he provides some serviceable guard play to ensure that there really isn't a weak link in this offensive line, which is almost unheard of. Kramer went undrafted last year and saw a couple starts where he did look better as time went on, but he's firmly slotted as a backup unless there are injuries ahead of him. And then Jarvis is a UDFA from this class. After a concerning preseason at right tackle, Sewell flipped to left tackle to start the season while Decker was out with injuries. The number 7 overall pick from last season then flipped back over to right tackle and looked great there. He was dominant in college before sitting out due to the COVID season. He looks like he's going to be a dominant tackle now in the NFL for years to come. Nelson went undrafted in 2019 and started a lot of games last year due to Decker's injury, but he didn't really play too well. In the 9 games he started at tackle, as he also did play more games, but only as like a 6th lineman type, he gave up 41 pressures. The Lions better hope that their starters stay healthy this season. And then Eze is a UDFA from this class. Along their interior defensive line, they have Michael Brockers, Aleem McNeil, Levi Owuzurike, Jashawn Cornell, Bruce Hector, Eric Banks, and Demetrius Taylor. Brockers was a good pass-rushing interior lineman for the Rams since being drafted in the 1st round in 2012. However, last year with Detroit, he played terribly, only having 6 pressures off of 300 pass rush snaps. Hopefully this year he can regain his LA form, as this team needs more juice up the middle. If not, Brockers might be out of the league soon, as he is almost 32 years old and might just be past his prime. McNeil was taken in the 3rd round last year. He played well in a limited role as a big 320-pound nose tackle. In year 2, we'll probably see him get more snaps, so we'll get to see if he's going to have any pass rush juice or if he's just going to be this run defense guy. Onwuzurike was drafted in the 2nd round last year, but had a pretty slow rookie season. As I said, this team needs more interior rush, and Onwuzurike looks like he could provide that, at least with his play in college. Now entering year 2 and playing next to the number 2 overall pick, Aiden Hutchinson, let's see if he can start showing some of that pass rush prowess. Cornell was drafted in the 7th round in 2020, but has only seen a few snaps so far. Hector went undrafted in 2018, but hasn't done much so far with a handful of snaps he receives a year. Banks went undrafted in 2020, playing a few snaps for the Chargers last year, but not being a factor there, and Taylor is a UDFA from this class. So for edge defenders, they have Aiden Hutchinson, Romeo Okwara, Charles Harris, Julian Okwara, Josh Pascal, James Houston, John Kaminsky, and Austin Bryant. So many thought that Hutchinson would go number 1 overall in this last draft. So when the Jags passed on the pass rusher out of Michigan, the Lions pounced on this hometown hero. Hutchinson is an underrated athlete with elite get-off, a powerful bull rush, and enough speed to keep tackles honest. He might not be a top 5 pass rushers like most of these highly touted edge rushers are and eventually develop to be, but he should be an extremely good to great number 1 rusher for the next 10 years. Also, at least early on, he could kick inside like he did in college a bit to help provide some pass rush and get the best guys on the field all at once. He may not be as successful going against NFL athletes, but it is something that he has done in the past before his last year breakout fully at edge. Romeo Okwara missed most of last season with injuries, but had 61 pressures and 10 sacks the year before. If he stays healthy, him and Hutchinson have a shot at being one of the best duos in the league. And then they also have Charles Harris, who had a career revival here in Detroit. The 2017 first-round pick was disappointing for Miami, but last year he had 52 pressures and 8 sacks with the Lions. If Hutch had gone number 1, I would not have surprised to see the Lions not address the edge room, as Okwara and Harris could have been a great duo. So now having those two as your number 2 and number 3 could be pretty deadly with that rotation. Julian Okwara, who's Romeo's younger brother, was taken in the 3rd round in 2020. He saw some good snaps in the rotation last year and was productive with them, finishing with 21 pressures to go with 5 sacks. Pascal was taken in the 2nd round, making this already deep edge group even deeper. At 6'4", 270 with incredible strength, he's another guy who can kick inside often for pass rush downs. I'm excited to see how Aaron Glenn, the defensive coordinator, decides to use these guys, as they're 6 deep with good pass rushers here. Houston was taken in the 6th round this year out of Jackson State. Kaminsky was taken in the 4th round by the Lions in 2019, but didn't work out there and will be an uphill battle to make the roster here. And Bryant was taken in the 4th round for the Lions in 2019 and saw a good amount of snaps last year, leading to 5 sacks, but only off of 14 pressures. So for linebackers, they have Alex Anzalone, Chris Board, Derek Barnes, Malcolm Rodriguez, Sean Dion Hamilton, Gerard Davis, Anthony Pittman, Josh Woods, and Natrese Patrick. Anzalone was taken in the 3rd round of the 2017 draft by the Saints. After playing out his contract there, he signed with the Lions last year. Anzalone hasn't been incredible throughout his career, but he provides pretty average linebacker play at least. Board went undrafted in 2018 and worked his way into Baltimore's linebacker rotation. Now in a thin, unproven room here in Detroit, he's got a pretty easy path to some playing time to prove that he can be more than just this rotational linebacker. Barnes was taken in the 4th round last year, but saw a pretty significant amount of playing time. Like many rookie linebackers, he struggled. With good speed and strength, he has the physical potential to be a good starting linebacker, but he definitely needs some development, and it would be concerning if he can't get some playing time in this room this year. Rodriguez was taken in the 6th round this draft out of Oklahoma State. Dion Hamilton was taken in the 6th round in 2018 by Washington. He was a decent coverage linebacker there in the rotation, but was waived and missed all of last year with injuries. Davis was taken by the Lions in the 1st round in 2017. After a disappointing 4 years, he signed with the Jets, where he played even worse. Now back with the Lions, he hopes to revive his career with a not too difficult group of competitors to overcome. Pittman went undrafted in 2019, not playing too much yet and not being a huge factor when he is out there. Woods went undrafted in 2018, also being a backup so far, and Patrick went undrafted in 2019, not seeing snaps since his rookie season. So for cornerbacks, they have Jeff Okudah, Amani Oruwariye, Mike Hughes, Will Harris, Jerry Jacobs, AJ Parker, Bobby Price, Mark Gilbert, Chase Lucas, Savion Smith, and Cedric Boswell. Okudah was one of the most hyped up cornerback prospects in a while. However, he looked pretty bad as a rookie under Matt Patricia. Many were excited to see his sophomore campaign under new defensive coordinator and former DB coach Aaron Glenn. I still believe in Okudah, especially with an improved pass rush in front of him and good coaching. It's on him to prove to the world, though, that he's not a bust this year, as the team will decide on his 5th-year option after the conclusion of the season. Aruwariye has carved out a nice career so far as a former 5th round pick. Last year, he was forced to be this team's number one with Okuda out with injuries and performed quite well, finishing with 6 interceptions and less than 600 yards allowed to go with 2 touchdowns. If he keeps up this play and Okuda can be close to what he looked like in college, this will be quite the formidable duo. He was disappointed as a former first round pick for Minnesota. After 3 poor seasons, he was waived and picked up by the Chiefs last year. There, he started many games on the outside and did play better than he had in the past. At 5'10", 190, he could slide into the slot, which I believe would allow the 3 best corners to be on the field at the same time. Harris was drafted in the 3rd round in 2019 as a safety. However, as last year progressed, he went from safety to slot to outside corner. In the 4 games he played starting on the outside, the last 4 games of the season, he did not allow more than 50 yards, so maybe he can be a better corner than a safety and provide some nice depth here. Jacobs went undrafted last year and actually looked really good when thrust into action. He tore his ACL in week 14, so he still may be recovering from that, but when healthy, the Lions should be able to trust him to step up in case of injuries ahead of him. Parker also went undrafted last year and saw a lot of time out of the slot. Like Jacobs, he outperformed the expectations of a UDFA, but he didn't look quite as good as Jacobs. It is still nice though to see such production out the gate, and hopefully he can grow upon that in case his team needs him to see significant snaps. Price went undrafted in 2020 and saw some starts early in the season before being replaced and being a backup for the rest of the year. Gilbert went undrafted last year and saw a handful of snaps on the outside, but nothing significant. Smith went undrafted in 2019 and saw some snaps for the Cowboys in 2020, but that's it so far. And Lucas and Boswell are UDFAs from this class. So for safeties, they have Tracy Walker III, Deshaun Elliott, Kirby Joseph, Ifeatu Malifonwu, Brady Breeze, CJ Moore, and Juju Hughes. Walker has been a good safety for Detroit so far. He can play over top or closer to the line of scrimmage well and is good against the run and the pass. Earlier in his career, he looked like he could develop into a great safety, but he has so far yet to turn that corner, now entering year 5. Elliott played well for the Baltimore Ravens after being selected in the 6th round in 2018. He's dealt with some injuries throughout his career, but when he is on the field, he should provide some average to above average play at the safety position. With Glenn's defensive background, I'm excited to see how he develops these 2 young safeties, as they do have more potential than what they've shown so far. Joseph was drafted in the 3rd round out of Illinois this year and is likely to push Elliott for the job, or at least be the 3rd safety as a rookie. Melifonwu was taken in the 3rd round last year as a corner, but saw less playing time than a couple of UDFAs. This year, they seem to be trying him out at safety too. This may just be an experiment for now, but the 6'2", 205 corner with good speed, but not the best change of direction, might be best suited for a safety rather than a slot option, as they have a lot of nice outside corners, so he won't see any playing time there. Breeze was taken in the 6th round by the Titans last year, but didn't make the roster. In Detroit, he appeared in 1 game, only taking a handful of snaps. Moore was drafted in 2019 and saw some snaps last year, including 1 start, but with new additions, he might not even make the roster this year. Hughes went undrafted in 2020 and saw a small amount of snaps for the Rams for these past 2 seasons, but not much. For special teams, they have Riley Patterson and Austin Searbird at kicker, Jack Fox at punter, and Scott Daly as long snapper. Patterson went undrafted last year and went 13 for 14 on kicks with the Lions and perfect with extra points. But they do have Searbird, who was the Lions kicker to start last season before he got injured, going 10 for 12 and 5 for 5 on PATs. Fox has been the Lions punter for these past 2 seasons, making the Pro Bowl in 2020, and should be good for them once again this year. And then Daly went undrafted in 2017, but last year was his first year starting as a long snapper playing for Detroit. Alright, so now this is when I get into my season projection. First I talk about their floor and ceiling, and then talk about like everything that can go wrong, everything that can go right. I talk about their over and under, whether or not I think you should bet the over under, and then their biggest strength and their biggest weakness. So I'm putting the floor of this team at 6-11, which seems a bit high, but it is a pretty easy schedule, which I'll get into a bit more later. Some things that can go wrong, though, and hold this team back is, first off, Jared Goff. He might just hold this team back. He hasn't really shown too much ability to do much outside the structure of the offense, and so if things go wrong, he can't make things go right. Swift, maybe he can't take that next step, and the rest of these running backs just are fine. Running backs don't really move the needle too much. Chark, he looks like just like a decent complementary deep threat, not a number one like he showed the potential of. And Williams just takes a while to come back from his torn ACL, with no one else able to step up on the outside. Hawk, he remains good, not great. These guards struggle along the offensive line, and the rest of the line doesn't look as elite as they frankly should look. There's just no interior presence on this line against the run or the pass. Hutchinson, he can't hit the ground running, so this edge group is all good, not great. These linebackers, they look lost out there, especially with no run stuffing help. And Okudah, he looks like a bust, so this corner group doesn't reach that elite potential that they definitely have. And Walker and Elliott continue to look just fine, nothing really more than that. Optimistically, though, as I said, this is a pretty favorable schedule, and things are lining up nicely for this team that just works really hard. I can see them going 11-6. This offense could just click with Goff executing it extremely well with his strong arm and plus accuracy. Swift could look like Alvin Kamara light out there, and Williams just being a great complement to him. Jameson Williams, he could come back fast from his ACL tear, so this wide receiver room could look great with Chark as the number one again, and St. Brown being a stud in the slot. Hawk could look like a top 7 or better tight end this year, a great pass catcher and run blocker. This offensive line is elite, with any potential deficiencies at guard completely masked by the elite center and tackle play. This interior defensive line group is just like fine against the run, and they're able to generate some pressure, whether it's with the defensive tackle stepping up or some of the edge rushers kicking inside. And then the 6-deep group of pass rushers all rotate well, stay fresh, and Hutch shows that potential of being a true number one pass rusher. These linebackers, they're protected by the rest of the defense playing well, so just having mad linebackers is a bit easier to hide. Okudah reminds everyone why he was such a high draft pick, playing exceptionally from across the way from Aruwariye, who looks even better than he has in the past now that he's the number 2 corner. These safeties are able to play even better now that they have better help at cornerback, allowing them to take a bit more risks without giving up those big plays. Talking about their over-under, it's set at 6.5 wins, and restore the roar, baby. I'm taking the over on this. They have a pretty easy schedule, as I alluded to earlier, playing the Bears and Vikings twice due to their being division rivals. I can easily see 3 wins right there, at least 2. They play the NFC and the AFC East, so another 4 to 5 wins there alone. So already there, that's 8 wins. Tack on their last place schedule, granting them the Panthers, Seahawks, and Jaguars as the outer division plays. That's how I see 11 wins being completely realistic for this team. Like, at first you're like, oh, this is an 11-win roster. But when you're playing teams like that, it very might well could be. But I feel like if they don't get 7 wins, that's got to be a disappointment. Like, this team has just so much potential right now. And they've been heading in the right direction, rebuilding in such a fun way that if they don't hit 7 wins, I'm going to be really disappointed in this squad. Their biggest strength I'm putting as their offensive line. This offensive line has the potential to be the best in the whole league. Decker and Sewell are each top 15 at their position at least, with Sewell entering year 2 and having sky-high potential. Ragnow is a top 3 center, and an easy argument can be made to call him number 1. Jackson is young and developing, but has an easier job surrounded by this eliteness, and Vaitai has shown some great flashes, even though most of the time he's just average. I'm really excited to see how this offensive line will let this team do whatever they want. And then their biggest weakness, I put it as their interior defensive line. It's just real squishy. Combined with poor linebackers, this defense might get run all over. And that still is a problem, even though the run game is less effective in the modern NFL. I think they can supplement some pass rush by kicking Hutch, Pascal, or someone else inside in obvious passing downs, but it would definitely help if some of these young guys that they drafted last year in the middle can step up. Alright, so that's going to do it for today's episode. Let me know what you think. Do you think that the Lions could make that playoff push, reach their ceiling of 11 wins, or are they just going to be the Lions and disappoint again? If you're on YouTube, hit the like button, comment below what you think, and subscribe to stick around for the rest of this series. If you're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you might be listening to this, subscribe, follow along, leave a 5-star review, help push this out to some other people. And yeah, I'll see you guys all Friday.